Today, I'd like to welcome Monique Impagliazzo, who is joining us as our guest on our podcast. When we talk about rock star women, Monique falls into that category. So, Monique, welcome. Thank you for being here. I know you're busy. You're out in California, so it's a little bit earlier there for you. Thank you so much for getting up and being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So when we first were introduced to you, it was when we were doing some social media. And on Fridays, we have this post we call Female Filmmaker Friday, where we highlight female filmmakers. And of course, your name popped up and we started looking into things and we're like, this woman's a rock star. You know, she definitely needs to be on our social media posts. And you were one of our early ones. So, you know, it was really exciting to be exposed and to actually see all the things that you're doing. And the fact that you're a local kid, right? Tell me a little bit about your history of being in Philadelphia and, growing up here and where you went to school.
Absolutely. I was born and raised in South Philly. Very proud of that, always and forever. And I went to Temple University, studied film and media arts there. And I went on to intern at Mike Lemon Casting. And from there, I met Marianne Claro, who brought me on first as an intern. And then she hired me full-time when I graduated from Temple. And from there, I just started meeting a few different people through Marianne. She always had my back from the very beginning in this business. She was one of the first people to believe in me. Her and I still have a great relationship to this day. You might hear me say that a few times today.
That's great.
So obviously keeping the relationships in this business started early on. And from there, I went on to meet Diane Kerman. And some of you might know her as Diane Raffel, who's married to Stuart Raffel. They are a directing and producing team, and I went to work for their film Standing Ovation as an assistant.
But are they in California or they're local here to Philly?
So Diane is originally from Philadelphia, and she now lives here in LA.
That's amazing that you were able to make that connection and then still take it with you, and still have sort of those roots that you share, that common history. As far as Temple, which program were you majored in, and did it help you prepare for the real world of production?
I studied film and media arts when I was at Temple. And one of the classes that I remember even today, and it's many years later, that I had a screenwriting class, and my professor's name was Cynthia Bachman. And she really was somebody who cared and who encouraged me to continue to write and things like that. And I'll never forget that. It's something that I still think about today. I think about contacting her, but it's so many years. Maybe she's listening today.
You never know.
Never know. But from that class, she really pushed me. She wanted me to submit my work to the Set in Philadelphia Screenwriting Contest, which is the Philadelphia Film Office's screenwriting contest, which I did. I don't think I placed anything because I can't remember, but I remember working really hard to get that done. And she gave me an A in the class because I worked day and night to get this feature kind of under my belt at the time. So that is definitely a memory from Temple that stays with me. As far as getting ready to go out into the real world of film and TV, commercials, documentaries, I'm more of a hands-on type of person, and I think experience is where it's at. The more you do in this business, the more you learn the different positions. Just meeting a lot of people and doing your best work while you're on set at all times, no matter whether you're the director, producer, or whether you're the PA. So
you've had many roles. You've obviously worn a lot of hats, as most of us have who've been around long enough in the business. My first job was as an intern. I had already graduated Penn State and I was looking for work. I had a full-time job. And then I thought, well, how am I going to break into this business? And I got an internship unpaid with a local production company. And that really launched my career. But you have to sort of be creative and inventive on even trying to find those early leads for work. So right out of the gate, you actually were introduced to people who helped you along your way. That's
Yeah.
not always the norm.
I got very lucky. I did my best, like I said, at all times. And I had a lot to learn. I learned a lot, even, from Marianne, learning the business of acting and how to be professional, how to present yourself, your look. So she taught me a lot about that in the very early days. And I feel very lucky about that because, again, those early days, if you have someone who kind of cares about your own career, she saw my drive. She saw there was something there. So she helped me nurture that. And I still feel very lucky. And I take that advice. And then I learned from each person that I worked with. I worked for not only incredible men, but such strong and smart women who were wearing so many hats at the same time. And you really have to dig deep and do your best. I know sometimes on set, as a PA, there might not be things to do. You find things to do, or you talk to different people in different departments. Hey, you might want to go work for the art department or the camera department. So I always just tried to find the opportunity in it all.
But it's amazing because one of your first jobs after interning with the casting director, you became an AP right out of the gate. An associate producer is not usually your first job.
No, it wasn't.
Like I was saying, my first job as an intern, I was getting coffee and donuts and juice in the morning and, running errands a lot as more of like the PA. We don't put people through that anymore. I think we really try to engage production assistants early on. Not that they don't handle crafty and getting releases signed and things like that. At least in my world, I try to get the PAs involved with being able to do more. So I love that. It does lift their interest level on what they're working on.
Absolutely.
But as somebody young, you were really young in your very early 20s, right?
Yes. I believe when I went on to Standing Ovation, I had worked for Marianne for a few years and I was going towards my mid to late 20s. And it was time to really start stepping it up. And I really did all that I could on, Standing Ovation to show Diane and Stuart that I was here to work, basically. And I'm here to do what you need me to do to get the job done.
How far into your production career was it before you made that leap of faith? And was it a leap of faith to move to LA? Because, we hear this a lot from people. Should I move to LA? Should I move to New York? Should I stay here? And obviously, it doesn't necessarily matter where you live all the time because we all get in a car or we get on a plane and we go. But it does influence, I think, your networking and your ability to sort of get your name out there and meet people. So how far into your career were you before you did that?
Yes, this is such a good topic. I love talking. I get this question all the time too, from those who are just starting out in the business. And I always say, do what you feel is comfortable for you. I always wanted to live in New York, actually. And I did. I made the leap over to New York when I was 24 years old. So I lived there from, I think I was 24 to 26 or 27. But it was something that I wanted to do probably since I was 13 years old and I saw my first Broadway show.
Oh, wow.
My mom's aunt, so she was my great aunt, took me to New York. I have a cousin who lives in New York who does casting. And we had an amazing weekend. And ever since that weekend, I said to myself, I'm going to live in New York. I don't know when, how, when, where, how, all those questions that you ask yourself. But it was something that I knew that I wanted to do. I was scared, very scared. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't something that was easy. I'm very close with my family. I'm very close with all my girlfriends back in Philly. So it was hard, but I knew it was something that needed to be done. And I did it. And I moved to New York for a few years. That's when I was trying actually to do acting as well. So I was studying acting, I was working. And then I decided I did want to come back to Philly. And when I did make that decision, it was funny. I started working on Standing Ovation, which was being shot in Philadelphia as well as New Jersey. And then when we were wrapping Standing Ovation, Diane and Stuart were doing post in LA. So I was going back and forth. They kept on asking me to come out to finish doing post. And then there was a point when I got to LA, Diane looked at me and said, "Would you move here?" And I said, yes, I will. I want to move here. Because when I first started coming to LA, I have to say I wasn't a fan. I'm an East Coast girl. It wasn't my thing, but I have now since fallen in love with the West Coast.
I understand that. I understand that because I'm really a New Yorker. I was born in New York, lived there in my early years, and then my family moved to, the suburbs of Philly. But I always think of myself as a New Yorker. And I've spent a ton of time working in LA and, all over California. And I love California. I love it. And I love working out there. But I just have always been an East Coast girl. But you were brave. But you also had a connection, which was great because you were already working out there. You did a lot of post-production for them.
Yes, we did a lot of post. And at the time I was obviously working with Diane and Stuart. So they were basically like my West Coast parents. A couple other girls from South Philly came out as well. We were all working on the film, Jen and Crystal Teeny. So it was right in every single way. It wasn't like it was any type of a struggle. It just felt right. It was right. And I did it.
I love it.
And I'm still here till this day. And I think that, those who are thinking about, should I move to New York? Should I move to LA? I think that people should go and visit and maybe stay for a week or two. Give it a try. You might not like it. You might fall in love with it. And it does open you up to opportunity. Not saying that Philadelphia doesn't have the opportunity for film, TV,
right,
either. But it is obviously here in LA and New York, it's a bigger pool. It is of those
100%.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because, we'll have projects come across our desks and we're clearly bidding against companies that are in New York and LA. And it's almost like people look down their nose at us like, oh, well, they're in Philly. How good can they be? We have a tremendous pool of extremely talented people in the Philadelphia area. I mean, M. Night shoots all his films here. A lot of people shoot film here, a lot of commercial production, but it is a smaller pool. And there are fewer opportunities, especially when you're talking about, unscripted TV or, filmmaking. I know Sharon Pinkinson does a really good job, and Joan Bressler.
Yes. Erin Wagner. I know all those ladies over at the film office.
Yeah. And they do a great job. I mean, Philly would not be on the map for film production without the Philadelphia Film Office. So once you did make the leap and you were there, you were working already full time. You were in casting, you were doing post-production. What gave you the bug, the desire to be a producer and a director and a writer? Because there's so many different positions on a film shoot or, a television shoot that you could be on. Right. Why did that attract you the most?
I think that I always knew that that's where it was going to lead eventually. I think when I was acting, I didn't know as much. But film school gave me that, oh, okay, this is interesting. I loved writing because I loved creating. And it actually wasn't until I was in acting class in New York when I realized I actually wanted to direct. I was assisting my coach on a weekend workshop, and I had to direct these two actors in a scene, which we worked on for the 2 days of the workshop. And by the end, when they performed, I saw what came of it, and it blew me away. And I couldn't stop thinking about directing those actors. And I got the directing bug ever since then. And that's where this all came from with directing. I think writing started back in school, and of course, producing probably came from all of my production experience, putting everything together and working quickly and on your feet, being able to put out the fires quickly. So that's where the producing came from too. But the directing came from that acting class in New York.
Clearly, you were really open to the possibilities, right? This is something that I talk to interns about and
Yes.
young people, when I'm asked to speak at a college or something, is being open to the possibility. Often in the field or in our world of production, we will get pigeonholed. If you're a PA and you're doing location, or you're doing, or you're an editor, but you're also a writer, a director, a producer, sometimes you'll get pigeonholed. How did you prevent that from happening? And then take us through that next leap, because that was a huge leap from where you were at that point working as an AP. Talk about that a little bit.
I am the type of person that does keep an open mind at all times. I don't like to be closed off, because I believe that you can lose opportunities that way. And if anyone has, if someone told me when I was 17, 18, going into college, that my career would end up in this way, I'd be like, no, never, but I kept on being open-minded. Like you talked about, I love that you give that advice to these, young students or the PAs that are coming up through the ranks, because it's really important. You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know what someone is going to teach you. So I did all different types of work. I actually worked in the wardrobe department as an assistant. I worked as an art department coordinator. So I love learning about all the different departments and what they actually go through. What are their problems? What do they need help with?
And don't you feel that it made you a more rounded producer director because of it?
You understand, if you take the time to really understand the department's needs, they understand that as well. They get that you understand what they're going through. So you can have that conversation with them. You can work through these problems instead of, let's not talk about it. Let's just try and deal with it. Instead of maybe let's have a quick conversation, and when you're doing your scouts or your tech scouts and you have all the departments there, you can go over and have those conversations with the particular departments.
Did you ever find on your way up the ladder that you were, that there were any blocks put in front of you as a woman, as a younger person, as someone from the East Coast versus, the LA world?
I think as a woman, number one, it's very hard for us to keep on breaking through. Obviously, female directors, it's an everyday, I don't want to say battle or fight, but we are doing our best to put ourselves out there, because there are these stories that need to be told by women. And I totally respect men on set. And I think that I've had many teachers who were men who taught me. Stuart Raffle taught me a lot about being on set. And if I have any question at any point of the day, I could just randomly give him a call and ask him. But I believe as women, we sometimes in the beginning, but now I'm really excited because when I walk in, it's an all-female production crew, from the office PA all the way through to the UPM to the producer. So, I mean, that really excites me. And I think it's so great that these, young female PAs are seeing that, because they can see themselves in that position as well. So that really excites me. Do we have a lot of work to do? Absolutely. That's why I want to do the work that I want to do, is for that younger generation, because I feel like we do need female storytellers. We do. It's important. I just went to a function at the DGA for Queen Sugar. It was season 7, and they were celebrating their final season. And they had all female directors for all 7 seasons, led by Ava DuVernay. And I was there, and they got together. All these female directors were in one room, and Oprah was there. And it was such an exciting night. And there were a lot of younger women there too who got tickets. And I spoke to a few of them, and I was just so happy that they were there. I was happy I was there. It was just great to celebrate all these female directors and all the opportunities that this show has led to for them, because they were stuck. They had directed 1 or 2 features. They couldn't book episodic. They each were up on the stage. There were 8 of them that came up and spoke, and they each had the same story. And it was so inspiring. And then Ava read through all the series now that these females are directing.
Wow.
And it gave me chills. It's starting to open up more and more. So that's really inspiring.
I do think, and I'm glad that you point that out, because I do think that our industry in particular is one that offers more opportunity to strong women who are committed to their craft. It's not always easy. And I had said this before, speaking with someone on another episode of the podcast, but I came up against discrimination for being a woman more in the news industry than anywhere else.
Wow.
Anchors coming on to me, trying to corner me in elevators, trying to grab me.
I'm so sorry.
Other people. And, I had always sort of positioned myself as being one of the boys out in the field, because you sort of had to have that grit,
right?
So that they didn't think that I couldn't carry the tripod or help set up or, work in the technical side of things. But I do think as the industry has grown as a whole, we have more opportunities, and there's less and less of that, although we hear horrible stories and we know that it still takes place. I also think that we're in a better position to tell somebody to fuck off,
Yes, we are.
Excuse my term. But I think that we've earned that, right? It's not something that I prefer to do. I try never to call anybody out on set.
Right.
Whether it's for, unless it's something that needs to be addressed in that moment or they have to be removed from set. But I have found over time that if you pull somebody aside and you have one of these really deep conversations, that their mind is just now not focused on the work at hand, which to me at that moment is the most important thing, is
absolutely,
creating high quality, content. But I'm glad that you said that, because I love hearing that, you were in this, you had a seat at the table, right? You were in this room with all these incredibly talented directors. I love that. I love that.
It was an amazing feeling.
The fact that you were there says a lot about you too. Not everybody could get in that door, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yes. I'm a part of a Ray crew. If for all of your listeners and those who are trying also to become a part of the industry, a Ray crew is a great place. You could just sign up. It's free. They're trying, it's Ava DuVernay's film company, and they're trying to be more inclusive with women, diversity. So if you haven't signed up already for that, I don't work for them. I just think it's a great place to sign up, and they offer you sometimes seats at some of these great events. Amazing. Well, we'll put that in the listing, on the podcast as well. I never heard of that. So that's an amazing tip. Thank you for sharing that. Of course. Talk to me about what came next for you, because here you are, like this, South Philly girl, right? And you moved to LA, and you had an opportunity, and I won't say it was given to you, because this is something I also explain to people. Just because you know somebody who's referring you for a job does not mean you're going to get that job. Correct. It means that you have an opportunity to knock on the door, and maybe somebody will open that door. But it doesn't mean that it is a fait accompli, like, okay, I have this job. That's just not the case. A door was open for you. Tell us about that, because to me, it's just incredible. Yes. So working with Diane and Stuart, they were very close friends. And also James Brolin was an executive producer on Standing Ovation. So Diane obviously had a very close relationship with the Brolins. And obviously you all know that Jim is married to Barbara Streisand. And at the time when Standing Ovation was ramping down, I needed a job. I was living in LA and I needed a job, and this opportunity presented itself. But I have to say before that, Diane was somebody who was constantly putting my name out there. Another person who stood behind me, and I'm still, again, grateful, and we still have a great relationship till this day. She's still considered my West Coast parents. And I went to meet with Barbara Streisand about being her executive assistant. Yes, I know. It was a crazy week for me, a crazy day. I couldn't even believe it was happening.
How did you get your shit together in order to,
that it was very hard.
I don't know that I could have even pulled myself together for that.
It was hard. I was sweating up until I walked in to meet with her. And we sat down and we started talking like normal humans would. She told me some things that were going on with her career. I had known a lot about her career from the past. Thank God. It really helped me that my mom knew a lot about Barbara Streisand. So I have to thank my mom for that one. Made me watch Funny Girl and Hello Dolly back in the day. So, and I followed Barbara's career because she was a female director too, right? So I was always very interested. She wrote, directed, produced, she starred, she sang. I mean,
she's incredibly talented. And she also got overlooked for a director, an Oscar. That wasn't for Yentl. She won for Yentl, I think.
Yeah, she won the Golden Globe for Yentl, and she was overlooked for, I believe it was Prince of Tides.
Prince of Tides, that was it. Yeah. And that was an incredible film, Yeah. So did you go to her house?
Every day.
So, but for your first interview with her, you went to her home, their home.
Yes. And then we worked out of there as well.
When I read about that, I was like, that is just such an incredible story, you know, one that you'll be able to share for so many years and say, yeah, I know Barbara. I know Babs. What was she like to work with? Because, you know, she sometimes has gotten a bad rap as far as in her director role of being difficult. Yeah. But, you know, women are considered females, bitches and, you know.
We get the bad rap. We do.
And guys are just tough. But we are not. You know, we're seen in a different way sometimes.
We are, unfortunately, but Barbara is instinctual. She knows what's going to be good. She knows what's not going to be good. Whether she's singing, acting, directing, she has the instinct. And it was amazing to watch so close up and to watch her work. We were always very busy. It was a very busy day from the moment I walked in till I was finished at night. And we move very quickly. We don't just work on music. We work on music. We work on films. We work on political events, travel. We did tours. So there was always something different that was going on. And we had to be on our feet at all times and always looking ahead. You always had to be a few steps ahead if you had the time and if you could. So we worked with a lot of different people. On so many different projects, but they were always a lot of fun and I learned so much. It was endless.
You've had some amazing mentors and influencers in your life. I'm sure Barbara Streisand had a huge impact on your career, not just the fact that you could say, hey, I work for Barbara Streisand, but the fact that you were exposed to all these higher level types of productions. You worked for Barbara for how long?
I believe it was almost 5 years.
Wow. So you traveled all over the world with her on tour and everything. Did you leave Barbara?
I wanted to go back to working on production full time. And I knew I wanted to direct. I knew I wanted to produce. And it was very hard to leave. It's, you know, I still miss her till this day. and we still keep in touch. And if she needs help, of course, I'm here to, lend a helping hand if she needs anything. But I wanted to go back to shooting in Philly, which I did. I went on to Philadelphia, The Great Experiment. And it wasn't an easy decision, to say the least.
I was wondering how that went, like just the nerves that you had meeting her for the first time versus the nerves you had walking in to say, okay, it's time for me to move on.
Yes, and she understood that. She knew that I wanted to direct and produce. So it was a mutual understanding towards the end. Yeah.
So you left Barbra Streisand, you came back to Philly, you worked on some films here, and you've written, produced, directed your own films, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, I always wanted to shoot in Philly, even after Philadelphia, The Great Experiment. I still want to shoot in Philly to this day. I love it there. Like you were talking earlier about the crews. I agree 100%. I love everyone there, have great relationships, love the film office. And I had written a feature with a few of those girls that I mentioned, Jen and Crystal Tini, in reference to, it was a feature that had been shot in Philly. And we randomly ran into Sherry O'Terry, who was also from Philly. Yes, it was literally a random meeting. My friends at the time had a dog, and she had a dog, and she kind of heard our Philly accents and things like that. So there were some discussions about Philly, and we just kind of gotten close with her, which was amazing. And I said to Crystal and Jen, and I said, what if we, wrote a short? What if we raised some money, took it back to Philly, shot there? We have so many people who I'm sure who would help us. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And we did. We raised close to $30,000 to shoot that film. And Sherry loved the script, and, she got to, put her Sherry magic onto it. Very lucky.
As only she could do.
Yeah, she's like amazing.
She's a riot.
And from Philly, which of course we loved. And she loves Philly so much too, and got behind us.
That's awesome.
And we shot it in Philly a few months later after we raised the funds, and everyone came out of the woodwork to help us. I mean, it was so much love and support from Philly, of course, especially South Philly. But yeah, we had everyone donating. Maria Rossetti was our property manager, and she donated like some of the properties that we shot in. And Mark Liuzzi, who is a master plumber there, he donated the production office, the space. Pastificio, they donated food for some of the days of shoot. I mean, it was endless. I can go on and on. Mark Squilla, who's a councilman, helped us get so many things done there. He was behind us even during when we were trying to fund it. He was telling everybody about it. And so it literally snowballed into this amazing situation in film. And now we have a little piece of it to show everyone, which is really exciting. And went on to, into some film festivals, won some awards. So it was a great experience. And
talk about your inner strength though, because you really need to have confidence and inner strength to be in this industry, period. Whether it's, filmmaking or commercial work or television production, because you're not getting patted on the back saying, great job. That's just not the norm in our business. You really need to be able to stick to your guns and not back down at times. No,
you really have to have an inner strength, but you also have to have those surrounding you too, when you're in those low lows, or when you are at that point where you're like, how am I going to do this? I don't know how to do it. I've never done this before. Well, a lot of things in this business are things that we've never done before. And I often tell younger people, you can't be great at this. You've never done it before. And that's okay. This is why we're here. We're here to help you, talk you through it. I was actually talking to a PA that just worked for me the other day. And she's like, I'm in over my head with this crowdfunding thing. And I'm like, it's okay. You should be. but I'm going to talk to you and we're going to get you ready, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to get that money and make that film. So it's those relationships that you build with those who are in the business and those who aren't in the business. I have an amazing wife who I could talk to about anything. My family is always there. I talk to my mother every day, even though she's in Philly and I'm here in LA. My aunt, my dad, my brother, my sister, but girlfriends too. They're there for me. They were there on set, cheering me through. They're at the film festival, screaming my name. So
That's so great.
It's a really important, especially in this business, because there are a lot of times you're also doing things that no one else can see, right, and that no one's there most of the time, right? You're by yourself. You're writing by yourself. You're doing emails,
planning,
phone calls, you're planning. You're doing a lot that no one sees, and like you said, no one's there to say, "Oh, good job! You did such a great job today." Very rare, but there are people out there who will do that. I try and do that for my teams. I try and stay positive because these days are so long on set. So,
but you make a great point, because surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are supportive,
yes,
and have the confidence in you that sometimes maybe you don't have yourself. And I'm not saying you're not a confident person, but sometimes you're working on a project and, the fundraising aspect or other things happen, and it can be exhausting. So surrounding yourself by other like-minded people who can lift you up versus trying to knock you down because they're maybe jealous of the work or envious of what you're doing, or just not being supportive. How important is networking and creating, that support system around you as an individual in our business? Because the other thing is, I would have to say, Monique, is a lot of people don't understand our business. They'll come up and they'll say, "Oh my God, you work in television, or you're producing or directing a documentary. That is so cool." And people will say, "Your job is glamorous." And I'm thinking, no, it's actually not glamorous. And I've said to people, well, if you think that being on your feet for 16 or 18 hours a day without eating or sitting down is glamorous, then go ahead. I mean, sure, we have opportunity and we're exposed to things that most likely we'd never have been exposed to in our lives, like being Barbra Streisand's assistant, for instance. But, I've traveled all over the world working, and there are many things I would have never probably had access to, So talk a little bit about the importance and maybe give some ideas on how to go about that. Because not everybody's good. Like, I can talk to anybody.
Yes.
Anywhere at any time, maybe to a fault. But it's not that easy to walk up to a stranger, or, you're hired as a PA on a set and you've never met one of these people before. It's not that easy.
It's not easy. Even for me sometimes. And I'm like you, I will talk to anyone who will talk back. But sometimes on set, I also get a little shy as well, until someone understands what I can do and, what my experience is. So every time I show up, I am going to go all out. Right. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be on time. And I also tell PAs, too, if there are a few minutes where, that we're doing a reset and you want to speak with someone and be like, "Hey, I'm available starting next week if you would need an extra hand, or I'm wrapped out on this day. If you need some help with wrap, I'm here." Just like little things like that, people do remember. And people watch PAs on set, whether there's something to do or whether there's nothing to do. They are watching you, and they will know who works hard, and they will know who's trying to kind of slip by. I had a PA once who I was working with. He knew everyone's name on set, and he got hired for another job that paid double his pay just because someone noticed he knew everyone's name on set. And it's
that making yourself as a valuable integral part of a production team, no matter what level you're at, because even though some people might say, oh, that's just the PA.
Right.
Just a PA is really not the work that production assistants do on set is invaluable.
Yes, it is.
And it can make or break a production. And
we couldn't do it without PAs.
No, we couldn't.
No.
And, that's why I sometimes feel a little frustrated when somebody's coming out of college, they immediately want to be a director or a producer. I don't think that they're understanding the value of that, as you said, hands-on education of being a production assistant. When you're a PA, you're exposed to every job on that project. Because you're likely interacting with the director and the producers and the camera people and the AC and all these other people. So I think that's really valuable advice.
I always tell those who are coming out of school, try and PA as much as you can. I know that it doesn't sound glamorous and it's going to be long days, but what you learn is going to be unbelievable. And you are not even going to realize how much you will learn from those experiences. And there were times too that I went back down to a PA after, sometimes working even as a PM, I hadn't done any work in commercials. Who would hire me? I went down to an office PA just to learn all the paperwork that goes on in commercials. And commercials is a great way to learn because it's so fast. You have to be on your feet at all times. I always tell people, if you can office PA or PA on set on a commercial, go and do it. You will learn so quickly. You will move up very fast. Please do it.
That's interesting because they're very different genres of work, right? I mean, if you compare, shooting a documentary versus shooting a commercial or a feature film, I think in everything that we do, there tends to be a lot of hurry up and wait going on, especially in feature film. The first feature film I worked on, I had been producing for 10 years. And I always had it in my mind that I wanted to work in features. And a friend of mine was a script supervisor and worked for like Scorsese, big time. And so she knew that I just really wanted to do this. So she got the door open for me, certainly not the job. And I was all excited because it was a big Columbia Pictures film and it was The Money Train with Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson. And really it was I think Jennifer Lopez's breakout film. So I go in to have this interview and I'm all excited and I'm thinking, I work in the production office, whatever. Well, they offered me a job as a lockup PA. And it was 20 below zero.
Oh.
And I had just moved back from Florida. So my blood was very thin. I had this big heavy coat on. My friend gave me all these silk underwear and hand warmers while she's sitting next to the director with a foot warmer, and a blanket and being coddled. But it is a totally different animal, working in features and documentaries. How do you straddle all of those successfully? Because you've been able to do that.
Yes. Again, it's being very flexible and very open. Production is production, right? But like you said, they are different in their own ways. Obviously commercials are different from features, different from docs. So if you are a PA and if you are someone who wants to learn and understand how it all works, I think that you should try a little bit of each to see, first of all, what you like, number one. And number two, so you can be flexible if you never know what you're going to be hired in. You never know who is working on something that jumps to something else.
100%.
So it's always good to have all of the experience. People are like, oh, you worked in commercials, but you worked on TV and you worked in film. Yes, a lot of people do. And I think that it's really important to know the differences. The paperwork in commercials is obviously way different than the paperwork on a film. So
terminology sometimes.
Terms, things that, some of the things you do, but the basics are all there, right? The production basics. stay the same. So you take that with you. And then you adjust to the project. And again, obviously, you know this, every project is going to be different anyway. So
yeah. Well, because there's a lot of things that happen in the moment that we have to react to and shift maybe how we had something set up, or completely different plan needs to be implemented at the snap of a finger. In your world, with all the work that you've done, what was like your most challenging situation that you can recall, and why? Like, some crazy thing that happened behind the scenes, or
just directing Turkey's Done, my short, was definitely the hardest project I've ever worked on. And Barbara one time asked me what was harder, working for me or directing a film. And I said, it was a tight tie. It was. And she giggled and we laughed. But when you direct, it is endless questions. Everybody wants to know,
what's next?
What you're thinking, what's next. Did you do your blocking? Have you talked to this actor? Have you done this? Have you picked this? So for me, we shot it in 2 days. It was very hard. And you have no time. You just have to do it. So I would suggest that, when you are going to go out and do it on your own for the first time, again, you need to surround yourself with those who are going to be there to support you, who are going to want to do their best in their positions to make, the project amazing.
But preparation is key, is it not?
It's all prep. It's all prep, and prep it. Please prep it. Yes. That was definitely the hardest challenge for me.
I believe it, because, when you're the sort of central nervous system of a production, everybody is looking for answers.
Yes.
And you kind of feel like you're being stretched in a lot of different ways, but sometimes that stretching not sometimes, I think it really helps us grow.
Makes us stronger, for sure.
It makes us stronger, and it makes us grow. And, just the fact that we realize, like, wow, I did that. I was able to do all those different things and connect all these people. So, I always talk about, the imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard that,
yes.
where you, and so this business is one that, you certainly can feel like, how did I get here? I'm not good enough to work with so-and-so. And then, then you do a project and people are gushing all over you, telling you how great you are. And I look at myself and I'm like, pinch myself, like, are they talking to me?
We all deal with that, especially women, right?
Yeah. And I just think we are so in our heads about everything. And, if you're like me, which I think you are, as far as like just being very detail oriented, very focused, what you want your end product to look like. And it's a matter of putting all of those puzzle pieces together, right, to make that gorgeous puzzle in the end. So you're working currently on a film. It's a rom-com, right? A holiday rom-com.
Yes.
Why did you go that direction?
Well, to tell you the truth, I want to direct my first feature now, and it's my next step. I'm not just, again, putting myself into that little box of a feature. I'd love to direct anything. But during the pandemic, my writing partner and I, April Doctolero, who is an amazing actress and writer, we got on Zoom every day, and we got this script done, and we felt great about it. And I made a lot of connections when Turkey's Done was in the Women's Film Festival with those who run the Women's Film Festival there in Philly. So Fang and Susie are amazing. And they introduced me to Diana Hull, who those three now have 3 Left-Handed Women. That's their production company. I love that name. And they also work very closely with Elride Productions. And Wesley Hall is a huge supporter of female filmmakers. Love you, Wes. And they find funding for films. And so with 3 Left-Handed Women and Elride and my production company and April's, we are looking for funding for Lights, Camera, Christmas. So that's my next project.
I love the fact that, the story behind it is based in, it's about somebody who works in industry, but not a director, not a producer.
No, she's a set decorator and working in the art department with so many amazing different personalities. I had a great time working in the art department. My friend Bernadette Stewart, who I actually worked with Barbara, she was Barbara's design assistant at the time. She's now a union set decorator. And she kept on wanting me to come over to the art department to keep everything organized and things like that. So I went on for a few projects with Byrne and also met Megan Krusel. And I just love their personalities and Val, who is another set decorator. So it's kind of like all of their personalities together, which I always found very interesting. And they're all so creative and just so smart. All of them, you know, these women, they also work very hard in the art department. They work endless hours too, by the way. In art. That. I mean, they're right up there with production and location. So
they're creating costumes or, you know, different types of things, you know.
Yeah. So
they're up all night.
With talking with April, obviously April and I came up with everything together. She's an amazing writing partner. And like I said, she's an amazing actress too. So while on Zoom, we would act out a lot of these scenes that we were writing. So it was always a really great time. We would reverse roles. And so I sent it over to Susie and Fong, and they took an interest in the script, and we have since been developing it and now in the process of looking for funds.
But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of those things that happen behind the scenes, which is why I called this podcast Storytellers Behind the Scenes, because there's so much that people never get to see.
True.
You know, and, you know, do you have any stories that, you know, was like, one of the crazy things that happened to you?
Well, yes, actually on Turkey's Done. It was literally the last shot. And we had this old Cadillac in the scene that the character drove, that Dino drove. I think it was a 92 Cadillac. It was maroon. And I had left the trunk open because it was very hard for the actor to kind of keep on going in, because he needed to go into and get a rag and kind of come around. So I kind of left it cracked open. Well, when we went to start the vehicle at the end of the day, it didn't start. So thinking, you know, we can give it a typical hot shot. That wasn't the case. And the car went on fire. And of course, the fire trucks are coming, the police. And I'm like, we had to go out with a bang, didn't we? We had to go out with a bang. Everyone was fine. No one got hurt. Thank God the grip truck had a fire extinguisher. The firemen showed up like, what is happening here? We had to explain. But again, no one got hurt. My sister was inside the vehicle when it went on fire, but jumped out. And we got it put out quickly. And yeah, so I had to pay, of course, to get the car fixed. But
of course.
We did, yeah. But that was
that's crazy.
Something I wasn't expecting, but that's why you have production insurance. Really important.
That's interesting that you talk about that, because there's a lot of freelancers that I'll hire or work with. And, you know, my accountant is always saying, make sure they give you a COI, or, you know, that they show you their insurance.
Right.
And there's a lot of people in our business, and this is actually a good point to share with people who are maybe wanting to break into the business or who are in the business already as freelancers or in college. I don't think people realize that there's all this insurance that we have to protect ourselves, because yeah, I mean, what happens if, you know, that HMI light falls over and the bulb breaks and, you know, pokes somebody in the eye? Who's getting sued for that?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of insurance. Can you imagine what you would have gone through if you didn't have that level, you know, of protection for yourself?
We did have it. We had production insurance. That was one of the first things that we bought once we raised the funds, was the production insurance, because we knew how important it was.
There's a lot of people that you talk to about it, though, and they are completely clueless. They have no, like, what do you mean I need my own insurance? Well, you want to protect yourself, because otherwise they're going to go after you personally.
Production 101. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know at Temple, because I have a friend who was teaching at Temple, and I know that they do a really good job of enlightening students, who are going to be going into the business.
Yes.
But I often think, wow, it would be so helpful if they even started earlier, it doesn't have to be applicable to our industry, but there's just so much that you don't know when you get out of high school and you get out of college. And it's like, you want to protect yourself in order to be sure that if somebody gets injured, it's not going to ruin your personal life, because that's really what happens.
Yes. I said to, Crystal and Jen, and they agreed, we don't want any of this liability going on to us. It would go on to, the production insurance, and we opened an LLC for the film itself. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. And then obviously you have to do all the SAG paperwork and things like that, even for such a film that was only shot for 2 days. I'm not saying in any way that it was a small production because of those who were involved. It was, and we had actors who are named actors on set. So we wanted to make sure that they were protected as well.
And there's
as well as the crew. I mean, crew too, actors and crew.
Of course,
I'm not.
Well, and now with this whole COVID stuff, we were back on set, in 2020 toward the fall, we were doing a lot more streaming and stuff. But when we got back into the field, there's so many clients who just do not want to pay for a COVID compliance person. They don't understand why they should pay for it. Or the testing or anything like that. And things are sort of waning a little bit, but it goes back to that preparation, doesn't it? It's just being prepared for the what ifs.
Yes. You just never know.
Well, SAG and after rules, that's what I was following early on. And I went and got my COVID compliance certification, not because I wanted to go out on set as the COVID compliance enforcer or officer, but because I wanted my clients to feel comfortable that I was looking after not only their best interest, but to your point, to our crew's best interest, because we
have to protect our crew.
We're like a family, right? We have to feed them well.
We are the crew.
And give them breaks and make sure that they feel safe. And there were many times on productions where I have friends who were working on them, and they would call me up and they would say, you cannot believe this huge production companies. You cannot believe nobody's wearing a mask. They're not doing testing. They're not doing follow-ups. It's like, my response is, what are they thinking? Mm-hmm. They don't want to pay that extra money, or they don't want to pass the charge on to a client. I just think it's penny wise and pound foolish, as they say. It's just, I think it's very short-sighted to not make sure that you're covered. The other thing with insurance, which is interesting, is the liability now with just sharing of information, right? And making sure that you're covered with cyber security. Yes. My policy actually is something that covers you up to whatever X it is, right? In case somebody infiltrates or hacks your system. And these are things that, you don't think about like out of the gate, when you're starting your own company or you're hired by, a larger organization to work for them. So I'm glad you brought that up. So if you were giving somebody advice who wants to break into the business or wants to shift their career into this business, what would you tell somebody?
I would tell them they should try and PA as much as they can. It's a great place to learn. It's a great place to ask questions. If you can office PA, if you're interested in producing, office PA is a great way to learn the paperwork, or you can work as a production secretary on films. That's another great place to start. As well as an office PA on a film too. They learn a lot. They're there through it all. And just when you show up, make sure you're on time and do your best all day long. It's going to be long days. And if you love it, it's worth it.
That's great advice. And I always find that those PAs that are, just open-minded, but well-informed going into it, they do so much better out in the field. If they go out with the expectation that, well, I'm a PA, but I'm going to be able to do this, or, some people kind of will cop an attitude. And as you said, production assistants, PAs are looked at really closely because we're always looking for somebody who's talented, who's upbeat, keeps a positive attitude, doesn't complain on set. And as you would also alluded to earlier, is making yourself invaluable and offering to do things that don't necessarily fall within your role necessarily. But if you see that there's extra work that needs done or somebody needs help, stepping up and doing that. So what's next for you? So I know you're raising funds for your romantic comedy, but are you working on other projects currently?
I am actually writing a pilot right now. I don't have a title for it, but I'm working with another producer to try and develop this pilot. So that's what I'm doing now. It's obviously a lot of self-discipline. And also I still do work in production on set too. Obviously, we need to make
Gotta put food on table, right?
Exactly. So I love working on set and staying relevant. I actually did a lot of work in health and safety on set as well. So I know a lot about, COVID compliance. And yes, so just trying to be self-disciplined when I'm not working to work on my own projects, which is not easy.
No, it isn't.
Self-start every single day. And again, it's a lot of doing work that people don't see. But if you want it bad enough, then you'll work hard enough.
That is great advice, because it's easy to get disillusioned. But sticking to the belief that you have and just keeping your eye on the carrot. That's the term I use with my kids. Keep your eye on the carrot. Know what it is that you want, that you're going after, and chase it down without giving up, even when times are hard. And it's easier said than done. Look, we've all had those moments where it's like, oh, I'm going to go get a job with, somebody else or something. But I can't see myself ever working full time for anybody ever again. I love having my own company and having this podcast where I can meet amazing rock star women like you, and not just women, but I've certainly had male guests on as well. But it's just such a pleasure to have spent this time with you, and we're so grateful that you were able to set aside a little bit of time with us. And then maybe once your project gets some legs and it's out there, we can bring you back on and talk about it. And then when you're on the East Coast, of course, we would love to see you.
Yes, I'd love that as well. And thank you for doing what you're doing. This is truly amazing. So thank you.
Subscribe to our podcast to hear more.